So you sit down to watch Disney Plus, hit play, and suddenly Error 83 blocks the entire stream. Usually it means Disney Plus no longer trusts something about your connection, browser session, device, or network setup. And lately those checks have become a lot more aggressive. So in this video, I'll walk you through the fixes that actually work, including the DNS, browser, and connection settings that most people never even think about. Now, at its core, Error 83 is usually a verification problem. Your device tries to connect to Disney Plus, and Disney servers quickly check whether the connection looks normal, trusted, and consistent. A simple way to picture it is like sending a letter through the mail. Your device is the letter, and Disney servers act like a postal clerk checking the return address before accepting it. If the address looks incomplete, suspicious, routed strangely, or connected to a heavily flagged network, then the system rejects the delivery before the stream even starts. And that rejection is what becomes Error 83. And the frustrating part is that legitimate users get caught in those filters all the time, especially when browser data gets corrupted, DNS settings stop matching properly, or the connection is routed through low-quality shared networks. So in this video, we're gonna clean up the connection step by step and fix the settings most commonly triggering the block. One of the most common causes of Disney Plus Error 83 is a broken device or browser session. When you press play, Disney Plus is constantly verifying that your device, app session, browser data, and security systems all match correctly. Part of that process runs through Widevine, the digital rights management system Disney Plus uses to verify trusted playback devices. And sometimes that verification process breaks entirely. It can happen after app updates, corrupted cache files, network changes, browser issues, or smart TVs waking up from standby with an incomplete session stored in the memory. And that's why one of the most effective fixes is also one of the simplest, a full power cycle. Just try turning the TV off with the remote, actually unplugging the TV or streaming device from the power for about 60 seconds. Most modern smart TVs stay partially active in standby mode, so unplugging the device forces it to fully clear temporary memory, rebuild the app session, and restart the DRM verification process from scratch. And if you're watching through Chrome, Edge, or another browser, then stale browser data is another major trigger here. Disney Plus can store expired session tokens, corrupted cookies, cache location data, and old login information long after a session breaks. So instead of clearing your entire browser, just go into your browser settings, find Disney Plus under site data or cookies, and remove only Disney-related entries. Then reopen Disney Plus and try again. And before digging through advanced settings, also test the site in an incognito or private window or another browser entirely. If Disney Plus suddenly works there, then the issue is usually cached browser data, not your account. Now, if the hard reset didn't solve the issue, then the next thing I would check is DNS, because a surprising number of Disney Plus Error 83 problems are not actually caused by the app itself. They come from the way that your connection is routed to Disney servers. Most people still use the default DNS system provided by their internet company, and depending on the ISP, those routes can sometimes become slow, inconsistent, overloaded, or poorly optimized for streaming services. Think of DNS like the internet's address system. Every time Disney Plus opens, your device asks where it should send the request. And if those responses start looking inconsistent or delayed, streaming platforms can sometimes reject the session entirely. And that's why changing DNS fixes Error 83 more often than people would expect. Cloudflare DNS, which uses 1.1.1.1, is usually the first one I test because it's fast, reliable, and works well with most streaming platforms. This also makes a strong case for using a VPN with its own private DNS servers like NordVPN. Rather than depending on your ISP's default routing, NordVPN handles DNS traffic through its own private network, which can help reduce random streaming errors and connection issues like Error 83. And no, changing DNS does not hack Disney Plus or bypass subscriptions. It simply gives your device a cleaner and more reliable route to Disney servers instead of relying on your ISP's default routing. And honestly, for a lot of users, that alone is enough to fix Error 83. If you've never changed DNS settings before, don't worry, it is super simple. We've already made a full step-by-step DNS setup video, so check that out after this video if you want a full walkthrough. Now, if Error 83 only appears when your VPN is turned on, then the VPN itself is usually the problem. And honestly, this is where a lot of free or lower quality VPNs start falling apart. Streaming platforms now analyze VPN traffic patterns very aggressively, and some protocols are much easier to identify than others. That's why reconnecting to the same server over and over usually does nothing. Disney Plus is still seeing the same traffic signature every single time. So instead of only changing servers, change the protocol. If you use NordVPN, start with Nord links, and honestly, if you keep running into Error 83 on a cheaper VPN or free VPN, then switching to a provider with better streaming infrastructure like NordVPN could potentially be an easy solution. Nord links is faster than older protocols like OpenVPN, handles streaming much more reliably, and generally produces fewer verification issues on platforms like Disney Plus. But NordVPN's obfuscated servers are specifically designed to make VPN traffic much harder to identify in the first place. If you're using another VPN provider, try WireGuard first. And if the error continues, switch to any available camouflage or obfuscation mode. The goal is to make your connection look closer to normal encrypted web traffic instead of traffic that instantly matches known VPN patterns. One insider tip for you: every time you switch servers or protocols, fully close Disney Plus before reopening it. Don't just minimize the app. Disney Plus tends to hold onto old sessions and connection data even after the underlying network changes. Now, as we've discussed, free VPNs can struggle with streaming platforms because too many users end up sharing the same small pool of heavily flagged IP addresses. Streaming platforms recognize those patterns very quickly, and honestly, some cheap VPN services run into similar problems because the infrastructure simply is not built well enough for modern streaming detection systems anymore. And that's why things like DNS handling, protocol quality, server reputation, and IP rotation matter a lot. For most people, NordVPN is still the easiest recommendation overall. NordLynx is built on WireGuard, so it connects very quickly, handles streaming reliably, and recovers well when networks change. NordVPN also runs private DNS infrastructure and offers obfuscated servers, which helps reduce the obvious VPN fingerprints that streaming platforms are going to look for. Surfshark is another good option if you want stronger obfuscation features without spending a lot of money. Its camouflage mode is designed to make VPN traffic look more like regular HTTPS traffic, which can help on stricter streaming networks or more aggressive ISP filtering. And Proton VPN is usually the stronger choice for restrictive or heavily filtered networks. Its stealth protocol was specifically designed to bypass VPN detection systems and unstable network filtering, which is why it tends to perform well in places where standard VPN traffic gets blocked quickly. But keep in mind that streaming services constantly update their detection systems and flag abused servers. So I can't say that any of these will be perfect forever. But compared to random free VPN apps recycling old IP ranges and overloaded infrastructure, these providers are much better equipped to handle modern streaming traffic and verification systems. So at this point, the important thing to understand is that Error 83 usually is not caused by one single problem. It's usually a mismatch. Your browser session says one thing, your DNS route says another, your VPN traffic behaves differently, or the app is still holding on to an older failed connection in memory. And once too many of these signals stop matching properly, Disney Plus rejects the session entirely. And that's why random troubleshooting often feels inconsistent. But once the connection becomes stable, clean, and internally consistent again, the error usually disappears very quickly. So here's what that looks like in practice. We switch to a cleaner protocol, enable obfuscation, reconnect to a fresh server, fully restart Disney Plus, and refresh the session completely. Now watch what happens. The Error 83 screen disappears. The Disney Plus intro animation loads normally, the stream starts instantly, and everything is working great. Because at this point, Disney Plus finally sees the connection as stable and trusted again. So at the end of the day, Error 83 usually comes down to connection consistency, or inconsistency. Once the device session, browser data, DNS routing, and streaming traffic all start behaving normally again, Disney Plus usually stops flagging the connection entirely. And that's why the fixes that work best are usually the ones that clean up the full chain together, not just endlessly refreshing the same broken session. If you're still running into Error 83 regularly, we've linked to the VPNs that we trust the most for streaming right now down in the description, including NordVPN, Surfshark, and Proton VPN. We keep those links updated with the best available deals, and they're generally much more reliable for streaming than free VPNs or overloaded budget providers. Also, if you made it to the end of the video, comment watch and I'll give you a personal Disney Plus recommendation for what to stream next. But as always, thanks so much for watching. This has been VPN Mentor, and we'll see you in the next video.